Hello! Welcome to my slideshow on Choose Your Crown Part 1. This is going to be a somewhat long slideshow series covering a supernatural journey through creation, out of the garden, and into eternity. So I'm calling this series Choose Your Crown, and you will find out as it goes. I am the author of this series. I will not be sharing my name. If anyone does know me personally, you know who I am, and if you don't, maybe you can get in contact with me. But other than that, I'm not going to disclose my name or anything, but I am going to share my testimony. I became a believer in who I knew at that time as Jesus Christ. During a time in my young adult life where I was depressive and detached from myself, I was empty inside, yet filled with jealousy, resentment, self-hatred, fear, and low self-esteem. So I just did not feel good. I did not understand where all of these horrible feelings came from. They came up gradually in time. I was newlywed and I had moved out of state with my husband into an incredibly nice apartment by the beach with a sports car and all. I had everything anyone could want and yet felt nothing. My skin was breaking out all over and my body weight was plummeting. I dreaded looking at myself in the mirror. On top of it all, I could not fall asleep at night for my life. I was unable to make my brain shut down to sleep. I was in constant state of trying to make myself feel better, and I could not figure out why my mental health along with my physical health kept nosediving. One night, while I couldn't sleep, I just began praying and begging God to save me and help me. My life getting back on track was not an immediate result of choosing to believe in my heart that there was a Messiah. It was and still is a journey. My journey initiated with me studying for hours upon hours. I opened up my hallway closet where I was keeping some books and found a Bible that was gifted to my husband. Once I was reading that Bible, I did not want to put it down. I went from looking up scriptures on dealing with fear and anxiety to looking into what the Bible says about food, to what it says about medicine, all the way to what it says about life and death. I wanted to know it all. I had a hunger and I was being positively impacted every time I applied a lesson to my life. In time, I made many firm changes by the guidance of the Bible to live a naturalistic, faith-keeping lifestyle. And due to that, I have healed from and conquered over all of the self-deprecating ailments I had gone through. 2 years in of being a believer, I came across how to study and live out the Torah within the new covenant of Messiah. I came across the ministry Torah to the tribes and learned from their teachings on Melchizedek covenant Torah alongside many other Bible studies that all happened to accumulate and tie together. It has been the most satisfying, captivating, and awakening adventure I could ever have. I have learned how to have a Hebrew mindset in accordance with my faith, which has meant throwing out much of the old ways I used to think and relearning from scratch. All I ask of my readers is to think a bit outside of the status quo of your beliefs and see where this trip may take you. Okay, so I'm going to start reading from these slides, and I'm also kind of talk a little bit alongside them because I want this to be kind of a casual video setup. I don't just want to be straight reading like I just was from my testimony. I also want to add my own little notes as we're going since this is a video recording. So yeah, I was 18 when I got married, and I am now 25, so this has been a long journey at this point, and it's taken a lot of time to study these things out, and I've done my best to compile my notes. I have a lot of notes. I have a whole entire binder. I have many saved things on my computer, and I want everyone to test everything that I say. Obviously, read it in your own Bible, test it to your own knowledge of the scriptures, and pray about it, and really take your time to study these things out. It doesn't happen all quickly. For some people it does, and for some people it doesn't. It's been a long journey for me, so I hope that you can take what you can from this slideshow, and if it helps you, that's incredible. And if not, well, just keep trying. So I want to go over a few definitions and explanations, since this is the beginning of a video series, because we need to have a strong foundation on what certain things mean to even be able to understand the deeper things. So I'm going to start with the definition of Hebrew, and for those who like Strong's numbers, it's Strong's number 5680, and it is Ibri. So in Hebrew itself, the word is Ibri, and we in English say Hebrew. Hebrew is the Semitic language of the ancient Hebrews. This language began written out as paleo pictographs and has evolved today into what are known as flame letters. So there's like 3 different types of ways that Hebrew can be written out, and I prefer the paleo. So as you're learning it, you really want to kind of stick with the pictographs and then know what they mean when you're looking at the more modern day Hebrew. And I'll kind of explain that as we go, because I like to break things down, and the pictographs really help for that. Alright, the original pictographs of Paleo Hebrew give an abundance of information for each word that they make up. The word Hebrew itself, written in the Hebrew language, cannot be translated into another language. The language reads from right to left. So in English, we read from left to right, and in Hebrew, it goes from right to left. So I have an arrow showing where it starts going from right to left to actually read it. And the first letter on the right-hand side is Sod, which means desire. And the next moving left word is Betz, and it means in. And the next is Resh, a person. And the next is Yod, deed. So Hebrew is Sod, Bet, Resh, Yod. And it means the desire within a person to go into a deed. Okay, so here's another definition for Hebrew. The word Hebrew is one of several Hebrew words that cannot be translated, such as Sabbath, Pesach, or Yahuwah, the holy name of the Lord of Israel. In Hebrew, it is written as, and it shows how it is written, like it's Ivri. The word has been described by Jewish and Christian theologians as the word for crossing over, as in Abraham crossing from Mesopotamia to Canaan. A Hebrew, as Abraham was first called, is one who makes the decision to go from one existence to a new or changed condition, and not like the condition left behind. So, like a lot of Christians, when they come into Messiah, we see it as we're made into a new creation. And it is that. We go from one existence into another. We have a desire to be changed. So it's a really strong word. This word is also the word for successful conception. So, literally the passing of semen into a womb and it conceiving. And I'm going to touch on that a lot throughout this video series because that's so crucial to understand. As we peer into our modern microscopes, we can see that Yahuwah created and saw in the beginning a sperm or seed leaving its familiar surroundings in search for that perfect egg. This word is also seen as a raft or ferry used to go from one side of the river to the other, such as in 2 Samuel. The idea behind the word is to leave behind the old life, go beyond where you are at, and to multiply once you get there. The true children of Abraham are those who leave behind their old life and take upon a new one, guided and directed by the same source that Abraham drew his life from. Remember that the very first principle given to all the living creation was that like kind would produce like kind. Abraham went from being a Gentile to being a Hebrew by faith. All the true seed of Abraham are those who also cross over. It is more than interesting to see the clear relationship between those who cross over and the conception of seed. Israel is the seed of Abraham, and there is only one seed, the seed of the woman, or Rachel. Well, if you don't understand the seed of the woman, we can get into that later. But the seed of the woman is Eve, or it can be considered Rachel, but ultimately it is the womb in which Abraham's seed produced from. But thou, Israel, are my servant, Jacob or Yaakov, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend. Okay, so here is the Hebrew alphabet. And here you can see how they have the modern, the pictograph, and the paleo. And like I said, it's very important to understand the pictograph especially. And then the rest just kind of comes naturally after you understand the pictographs. So we have Aleph, which is an ox, or it can mean strength or leader. Bet, which means house or inn. Gimel, which is pride or a camel or to be lifted up or even a foot. Dalet is a path, a tent, or a door, like the door to a tent. Hey is lo, behold, the window. It can also mean breath. Wa is nail, peg, and hook. It kind of brings things together. It joins things. Zayin is a weapon, a plow to cut off. So it's the opposite of wa, kind of, like, because this one is cutting off and the other one is joining. Het is a tent wall, a fence of separation. Tet is a basket or a snake or something surrounding or winding around something. Yod is an arm and a hand or a work or a deed, because we do things with our hands and arms. Kaf is the palm of a hand opening or something opening or speaking. Lamed is a staff. It is controlling. It's going towards something. It's leading something. Mem is a waters or chaos or energy even. Noon is a seed, fish, activity, life. So it is like a life seed or even a sperm. It even looks like that. Samek is a hand on a staff or a support or a prop. Ayin is an eye or to experience something or to see something. Peh is a mouth, speaking. Sad is a need or a desire or someone laying on their side to receive something. Or a hook. Kaf is behind or like the sun on the horizon or the eye of a needle. Resh is it means first or like the chief or the head of a person or just a person in general. Shin is to destroy and eat or to consume something, and it looks like teeth. And Ta is a covenant, a mark, or a sign. Alright, so now that we know the Hebrew alphabet, now we can really start to break down words using it. So another definition that's super important to know is Strong's 430, Elohim. Some people say Eloah. I've been interchanging it lately. Sometimes I say Eloah more, sometimes I say Elohim more. Or in English we say God, capital G, God. Elohim is the proper Hebrew word for God. The word Elohim means plurality of powers. This is where the idea comes from that there can be one divine being that has a plurality of powers. So we have an Aleph, that means it's the leader or the ox, Lamed, that controls or leads, and Hey, to behold, and then the ending suffix is Yod and Mem, and it makes it masculine plural. So it means the leaders that control. Behold. Next definition that's super important to know is Strong's 3068. Yahuwah, or Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, the proper name of the Elohim of Israel. And over 7,000 times in the Bible, this word is translated in English to the Lord with all caps. And so it goes from right to left, Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. Some people say Yahuwah, some people pronounce it Yahweh. The Jehovah's Witnesses are somewhat close, they say Jehovah. So there's different ways people pronounce it. And there's a reason why I prefer Yahuwah, but everybody has their own little variation. And what's most important is as long as you have his character right when you are speaking his name, because it's one of the commandments not to say his name in vain. So it's not necessarily about pronunciation, but it's about whether or not you're using it in emptiness or not. So anyways, Yod is a hand, Hey means behold or breath, Wah is nail or secure, and Hey is behold or breath. So his name can have a few different meanings. It can mean hand, behold, nail, behold, which is powerful because that points to the Messiah, or the one that secures breathing with his hand. That's powerful. All right, and now we're going to break down another name, and we're going to use Strong's 3091 and Greek Strong's 2424. So this is Yahusha, and we're going to get into this because there's a lot of talk on this name, and I kind of want to give all the information that I have found over it in time. So, and I used the Strong's Concordance plenty of times to back this up. So, Strong's Concordance number 3091 has the word Yehoshua for being a proper name that means Yahweh is salvation and Moshe's intercessor. Now they say it is written Yod He Wah Shin Wah Ayin to be Yehoshua or Joshua. Refutably, the actual Hebrew text of the Tanakh, or the Old Testament, only has the 6th letter Yod He Wah Shin Wah Ayin written in it twice. So, in the book of Joshua, wherever it says Joshua, it only says it spelled Yehoshua twice. And these two uses of Yehoshua are in Deuteronomy 3:21 and Judges 2:7. And the 5-letter variation of Joshua, which would be Yahusha without that second Wah, Yod He Wah Shin Ayin, is written 216 times in the Old Testament and is nonetheless replaced with the English name Joshua. So, why would a name that is written 214 more times be covered with a name only used twice? Adding the extra wa at the end to make the ending shin wa ayin makes the ending shua. In Strong's number 7769, shua is a cry for help during destruction of riches. The same as Strong's number 7768, shava, which is still shin wa ayin. And these words are said to come from the Hebrew Strong's number 3467, Yasha, which does mean salvation. And Yasha is Yod Shin Ayin. There is not a wa after the shin in Yasha. All this is to say that for the name to correctly come from Yasha, the name that means Yahweh is salvation should be Yahusha, not Yahushua. But it's fine. I mean, honestly, it's fine either way. But what we're saying is for it to correctly come from Yasha, it should be Yahusha without the extra wa. With that being said, Greek Strong's 2424 says that Jesus, or Jesus, is a transliteration of Hebrew Strong's 3091. So, if Hebrew Strong's 3091 should be Yahusha instead of Yahushua, then the Hebrew name of the Messiah is Yahusha, Yod, He, Wa, Shin, Ayin. The significance of this name is that it means his hand beheld the nail to consume our sin so that we could see, and I insert everlasting life there. I prefer to use the Hebrew name that is used 216 times over the one used twice. However, it is still healthy to meet everyone where they are at. Some say the Hebrew name Yahushua, some say the Greek name Jesus, and others the Hebrew name Yahusha. And even some say the variant Yeshua. So, like I said, as long as we're not doing this in vain emptiness or in pride, we want to get his name accurate in our manner of using it, not necessarily in our pronunciation of it. But it is so important to know the breakdown of it too. So, like we should know that Yahusha is used 216 times for Joshua, and that Yehoshua is only used twice. And nowhere is there Yeshua written. So, just be careful and you choose how you prefer. Alright, definitions and explanations. So, continuing, Yahusha, which is Joshua, and in the New Testament, when you break down their Greek, they even tell you it comes from Joshua when they say Jesus. So, Yod, hand, He, behold, breath, Wa is nail or secure, Shin is destroy or consume, Ayin, experience, to see. And once again, his hand beheld the nail to consume our sin so that we could experience everlasting life. That is our king right there. Alright, and Yasha, the word that it comes from, means Yod, hand, Shin, destroy or to consume, Ayin, experience, see. His hand destroys so we can see, and that means salvation. Alright, so here are some little screenshots that I've taken. So we have Hebrew numbers strong from the Strong's Concordance. We have Yahweh, which is Hebrew Strong's number 3068, plus Yasha, Hebrew number 3467. So when you add Yahweh plus Yasha, the Father plus saves, you get the Messiah, which is Hebrew Strong's number 3091. Yahusha. Alright, so that means that Yahusha's name for the Messiah, it means Yahweh saves. So Yahweh is the name of the Father, and that is introduced in Exodus 3:14. That is actually how I discovered his name. I was reading Exodus, and I looked at the footnote for when Yahweh introduces himself, and the tiniest little footnote in my Bible said, the Lord means Yod-He Wah-He, and that was my journey on my start to figure this all out. So Exodus 3:14 check your footnotes and get started, guys. And then Yahusha is the name of the Son because it means Yahweh saves. And you can find that in Luke 1:31. So there's different concordances, and I use Bible Hub. So in the Brown Driver Briggs, it even says, and it will tell you that the name for Yahusha started out as Yod He Wah Shin Ayin, and then it's also used as Yod He Wah Shin Wah Ayin, and then later they changed it to Yeshua, Yod Shin Wah Ayin. So maybe we don't want to use the later version. Maybe we want to use the original version. That's really all I'm saying. And then in Thayer's Greek Lexicon, we have Strong's New Testament number 2424 for Iesus, and that is where we get Jesus from in English. If any of you guys aren't aware, the letter J is, in terms of like human time span and relevance, the letter J is new. Like, relative to language, the letter J is very new. So, Iesus was the Greek transliteration, and now we have the English transliteration, Jesus. But it still should be Joshua or Yahusha. Yod He Wah Shin Ayin. And according to a later form, so see, they made it later. That's when they changed it to Yeshua. So, whose help is Jehovah. So, later writings gave the name the force of. So, later writings gave the name the force of Yod He Wah Shin Ayin. So that's kind of what we do want to see, that Yahusha in there. Matthew 1:21. So of Joshua, the successor of Moshe. So yeah, we do want to see that. We want to see Yahusha as Joshua, the successor of Moshe, because they were both Yahusha. A very common proper name among the Israelites was Yahusha, and so on. So I hope you guys are understanding how this works, because we have the original Hebrew language, and then it gets transliterated into Greek, and then we get even more transliteration into English, and we lose things. So we want to go back to the original to understand what the name really means. Alright, so now here's when we get into the meat. And I have a lot of content on understanding the Melchizedek, so I have a blog and I have a few other things, but I'm really going to try to teach it a lot in this video series because I know people like watching videos. So this is this introduction for it. And this slide's titled Elohim and Melchizedek. There's a few slides titled this. Melchizedek is the Hebrew word Melchizedek, meaning my king is my right hand. Or Melchizedek combines the Hebrew words melech for king and tzedek for righteousness. And it also means the king of righteousness. To understand the meaning of Melchizedek, one must first go back to the understanding that Elohim is one deity that is made up of a plurality of powers. Alright? This is important to know. He is one deity. Elohim is not three deities of one power. Alright? So, he is one person, one deity, with a plurality of powers. The traditional Trinity doctrine will teach you that he is three persons or three deities of one power. No, it is the other way around. Elohim is Echad, or one, as Deuteronomy chapter 6 points out in what is known as the Shema. So here, the word here is Shema in Hebrew. Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah our Elohim, Yahuwah is Echad, or one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. So he is one. He's a plurality of powers, not a plurality of deities or people. No, he's a plurality of powers. He is one deity. Elohim and Melchizedek again. Deuteronomy 6:4 is the greatest commandment that Yahusha himself references in Matthew 22, verses 37 through 40, and Mark chapter 12, verses 29 through 31. Yahusha declared, Love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the Torah and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Right, so Elohim is a title for the one whose name is Yahuwah. Elohim is a title for the plurality of powers within the one whose name is Yahuwah. So Elohim is a title, and Yahuwah is the name. Yahuwah is the name of the one deity, and Elohim is the title for the plurality of powers the one deity holds. To make this easier to understand, Elohim can be pictured as either a body or a household, and Yahuwah is the name of the body or household. So here's a picture for it. So we have one body. It is the person who is one, and his name ultimately is Yahuwah. And then we can see if he has his arms outstretched, his chest and arm section of the body is Yahusha, and the breath of Yahuwah is his set apart spirit. So we see one deity here, not multiple. We're only seeing one deity, but he has separate powers. So Yahusha is the arm and chest cross-section of the whole of Yahuwah. And Scripture has many places where Yahuwah communicates with and extends the attributes of his power through this right arm, or this arm cross-section. Before Yahuwah introduced himself to Moshe as Yahuwah in Exodus 3:14, the prior patriarchs called him El Shaddai. Shaddai can mean almighty, or my breast is sufficient. Shad is Shin Dalet, meaning breast, and Dai is Dalet Yod, and it means sufficiency. Right? Elohim and Melchizedek again. Now I'll read to you so you can see how this works, where it mentions his arm many times, or his right hand. So, and you can see how the word Yasha and Yahusha fit in this, because it is the part that is delivering. Okay, Exodus 6, verses 1 through 8. But Yahuwah said to Moses, Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh, for because of my mighty hand he will let the people go. Because of my strong hand he will drive them out of his land. Elohim also told Moses, I am Yahuwah. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Yaakov or Jacob as El Shaddai. But by my name Yahuwah I did not make myself known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land where they lived as foreigners. Furthermore, I have heard the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant. Therefore tell the Israelites, I am Yahuwah, and I will bring you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians and deliver you from their bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people, and I will be your Elohim. Then you will know that I am Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians, and I will bring you into the land that I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will give it to you as a possession. I am Yahweh. Okay, so we saw there that he was going to deliver them, and he did deliver them with his outstretched arm or his right hand. So here we go again. This is the prime scripture passage where we hear about the Melchizedek. Psalm 110. And in Acts, I think it's Acts chapter 2, or even Acts chapter 1 through 3, you see this get broken down even more. And in the book of Hebrews, they use this a lot in the New Testament, so you should know this scripture. Yahweh says to my master, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. Yahweh will extend your mighty scepter from Zion, saying, rule in the midst of your enemies. Your troops will be willing on your day of battle. Arrayed in holy splendor, your young men will come to you like dew from the morning's womb. Yahweh has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. The master is at your right hand. He will crush kings on the day of his wrath. He will judge the nations, heaping up the dead and crushing the rulers of the whole earth. He will drink from the brook along the way, and so he will lift his head high. All right, guys, that's powerful. That's powerful right there. Okay, so we understand now that he is one person. He uses his right arm or his and chest cross-section to save, and he has a breath or a spirit. All right. Yahweh's breath is his set-apart ruach, or his spirit. The ruach of Yahweh is known to hover, anoint, and fill. The ruach hovered over the waters in Genesis 1, which we'll cover here soon. Hovering in Genesis 1 is the Hebrew word rakaf, which implicates a relaxed shudder or brooding and can mean to cover in a nurturing way or even to fertilize. The ruach anoints. Anoint is the Hebrew word mashak and means to smear with oil, spread, and cover. Fill is the Hebrew word malah and means to make full, make complete, cover, or consecrate. In other words, Yahweh's set-apart ruach is a breath that covers those that belong to Yahweh in order to make them complete, as far as to say that it fertilizes them. A clean way of picturing the ruach hovering, covering, and fertilizing is as a bee pollinating a flower. So we could look at it in different reproductive ways, but to show a picture of it, it's easier to show a bee pollinating a flower. The ruach can give the impression of being like a hen brooding a nest, but I have come to learn that while the ruach has some feminine qualities, like wisdom, so wisdom or Sophia is a feminine attribute of the Holy Spirit or the Ruach HaKodesh. But I still believe that since it comes from Yahweh, it's still a masculine power. So as a masculine power, it would be the fertilizer of the womb and not the womb itself. But that will be covered all throughout this series. I'm going to talk about wombs a lot, so get ready for that and take a lot of notes. For the household analogy, Yahweh is the father, Yahusha is the son, and the Ruach is not exactly the mother because it is not a feminine power, but a caregiver or a nurturer or just a feminine, it has feminine qualities that lead a bride to be in marriage to the son of the household. So it's not the womb itself because the bride will be the womb, but it kind of leads the bride to the son. Okay, and then I have a picture here of the bee pollinating, and I show a picture of, I think it's Moses anointing Aaron. But I chose that picture because it shows how they would pour the oil out onto others, and that is how the Ruach works. So now that the three powers of the one deity of Elohim Eloah have been explained, one can better understand the kingdom administration of those powers. So now we're going to get into describing how the kingdom works, which is also a huge thing because the whole point of the gospel is to deliver the kingdom to Israel or Yahweh's people. So we want to understand what the kingdom of heaven is, or what the kingdom of Israel is. And that is all Melchizedek. So we need to understand this. All right, so Colossians 1:13 through 20. Or you can read all of Colossians, but I just had to choose verses to make this slide. He has delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. He is the image of the invisible Elohim, the firstborn of all creation. For by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. Whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body of the congregation. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. For in him all the fullness of Elohim was pleased to dwell, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of his stake. Therefore, as you receive Messiah Yahusha the Master, so walk in him, rooted and built up in him and established in faith, just as you were taught, abounding in thanksgiving. See to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of this world, and not according to Messiah. For in him the whole fullness of deity dwells bodily, and you have been filled in him, and he is the head of all rule and authority. In him also you were circumcised with a circumcision made without hands, by putting off the body of the flesh, by the circumcision of Messiah, having been buried with him in baptism, in which you were also raised in with him through faith in the powerful working of Elohim, who raised him from the dead. And you, who were dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, Elohim made alive together with him, having forgiven us all our trespasses, by canceling the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands. This he set aside, nailing it to the tree. He disarmed the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame by triumphing over them in him. All right, so that was a lot. Colossians is really cool when it comes to this, because once you understand that the full deity, because he is one deity, came in the flesh as Yahusha, that's powerful. And that he triumphed over death and over all the powers of this world so that he can establish his kingdom. That is amazing. So, Yahusha came as the whole deity of Elohim in the flesh, so that he could die to the nature of the flesh for everyone and be raised up to eternal life for those who put off the flesh through him and are raised up with him. Yahusha is the high priest and the King of kings of the eternal and everlasting priesthood and kingdom of the order of Melchizedek. The two major things that Yahusha did for us when he died on the tree was that he overcame and paid the penalty of sin, which is death, and he canceled the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands. The record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands was the book of the law, which is in the order of Aaron. So there was a another priesthood running on the earth. And it was after the order of Aaron, and there was a reason why that had to be. And we're going to get into that more later because it's a lot to explain. But we're now back under the Melchizedek order. The record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands was the book of the law, which was in the order of Aaron. When the book of the law was canceled out, the book of the covenant was made new, and the Ruach HaKodesh could then go out to all who repent of their sins, circumcise their fleshly nature, and bring them into the new covenant after the order of Melchizedek. And like I said, this will all be explained in full throughout this slideshow series, so I'm not focusing exactly on the other priesthood and what happened yet, but I will get there. So Melchizedek is the kingdom of righteousness. To be righteous means to pursue the covenant. And to sin means to miss the mark of being in covenant. And remember, the Hebrew letter Ta is mark or covenant. The kingdom of righteousness is the highest order reigning over the realms of heaven and earth. There are other orders, kingdoms, rulers, and authorities, but they are all lower than the kingdom of righteousness, and Yahusha has triumphed over them all. So like we just read in Colossians. All right, and once again, Psalm 110, verse 4. Yahweh has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. All right, so as mentioned on the previous slide, there are two realms, yet many branching authorities, okay? So this is when we're getting into like how things really work in this world. Okay? The modern world, like today's like school system or just like in general, they try to teach us that there are many universes and dimensions and we live here on this planet and there's all this other stuff going on. Okay, but hear me out. They say there's multiverses and multi-dimensions. But here, I'm going to simplify it for you so you don't have to question any of that anymore. The truth is that there is only one created universe, but there are two realms within it. So there's one universe, like one world, and there are two realms, and a few dimensions are within both realms. So I'll explain it more as we go. There is the spiritual realm and the earthly physical realm, and both are in the same created universe, so they occupy the same space. The spiritual realm is veiled from the physical realm, although they both have influence on one another, and kind of like what you bound on earth gets bound in heaven and vice versa. The physical realm has three spatial dimensions, so like length, height, and depth, that run alongside time. And the three spatial dimensions plus time are illustrated as a tesseract or a hypercube. I forgot to put a picture of that on here, but go look it up. That is our realm. Like, that is the current world we live in. It can be expressed as a tesseract. And the spiritual realm might have more dimensions than the physical realm. I don't know how many dimensions the spiritual realm has, but let's not get caught up on that. Than the physical, but does not run alongside time. So the spiritual realm is outside of time, and it's not stuck within our same like tesseract kind of setup. It doesn't have height, depth, length, and time. It is different from that. The spiritual realm has at least 2 kingdoms. I'm going to say it has 2 kingdoms because it's confusing to say that there's more. The kingdom of the Shamayim is heaven or the kingdom of light, and then there is the kingdom of darkness or the dominion of sin. So, and those are in the spiritual realm. So it really is like Yahweh and then the fallen darkness. So one important thing to note is that these two are not equal and opposite, okay? We're taught so many times as children and stuff that these are equal and opposite. Yahweh versus Hasatan. But they are not equal and opposite. Alright? The kingdom of heaven is a greater and higher order, while the kingdom of darkness is lesser and lower. So they're not equal and opposite. It's a greater and a lesser. Okay, so originally the kingdom of darkness was a normal, righteous, lower order, and it was just to rule over the earth, okay? Like, if you find the scriptures where it says Lucifer would walk on the flaming stones, I'm paraphrasing right now, but he was just set to be a ruler over this earth. And there's going to be more on that in the next slides, like series, within the series. I got into it deep. But anyway, right here, we're just covering the basics. So, he wanted to raise his order above heaven and become so that's how he became the kingdom of darkness, because Yahweh cast him down even more. So he was already a lower order, and then he had to go ahead and want to raise it above heaven, and he couldn't, so now he got kicked out, and now he's the kingdom of darkness. Okay, but his domain, Lucifer's domain, is still only over the earth. But instead of being within a righteous order, it is now a perverted order of darkness. So his domain is over this world, over this earth, and it's perverted. It's not righteous. And all the rulers of this world, unfortunately, work for the ruler of this world. They don't work for the righteous ruler of heaven. Alright, so the kingdom of darkness, however, does operate within the perverted paradigm of equal yet opposite. Okay, so equal and opposite does happen within the kingdom of darkness. And that is why this world always has 2 dueling sides that are made to accomplish one set task, okay? A seemingly good Luciferic light, like how he can appear as an angel of light, and a seemingly bad, which it's all bad, but one side looks good and one side looks bad, but it's all bad. And it's the one that is seemingly bad is the satanic darkness side. And even though both sides are immersed in sin, like neither side is the good choice, but they give the illusion of choice. And all who are in this world get stuck in the paradigm of the tree of the knowledge of seemingly good and seemingly evil unless they are delivered from that paradigm into the kingdom of heaven. So you want the tree of life. Okay, so this is like conspiracy theory 101, guys. They thrive off of the black and white checkerboard dualism. But Yahusha is the true narrow path that delivers us into the tree of life. We'll get more into it if we need to. So I made this picture graph. I don't know what to call it. An infograph, trying to explain it. So, excuse me for 1 second. Alright, so we have, I'm going to start from the top and move to the bottom of this. So, say we have the spiritual realm. And in the spiritual realm, there is the highest order, the order of Melchizedek. That is where Yahweh reigns. That's where his throne is. And then we have the kingdom of heaven. Like, that is the kingdom of heaven, the narrow path, the tree of life. It's all there in the highest order. And then below that, and still in the spiritual realm, but this is interesting because technically the stars and planets, what we see as the stars and planets and the sun and moon, they are like the only heavenly bodies, and they are heavenly bodies that we are able to see as a physical human without the veil being lifted. So, like, when you're looking at the stars, you really are seeing a glimpse of the spiritual realm. So that's cool. So, anyways, but they still are within it. And they are technically the veil, or at least a part of the veil, that keeps us from seeing more of the spiritual realm. And they are the spinning swords that were set after Adam and Eve left the garden. It's actually how the star spin looks when you're at the center of the equator. They look like two spinning swords. Okay, that's the veil that keeps us from seeing beyond. And yeah, it's pretty cool how it actually works. But those two spinning swords, because Adam and Eve took from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they actually are the eyes of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's the owl eyes. It's all of that. It's Moloch. If you don't know what Moloch is, look it up. They look like owl eyes, these spinning stars that keep us from seeing the true glory of the heavens. And they keep us in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil of this world, the seemingly good versus the seemingly evil. And it's still in the spiritual realm. So we have the lower order of the flesh, which is the kingdom of darkness, and this is where Hasatan, or Lucifer, this is where he operates. And it's a wide, equal yet opposite gates. Like, this is the wide path that leads to hell. And it is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then below that, we have the physical realm, which is the earth. So we have our earth. And I don't know who all is watching this, if you're a geocentric earth believer or not, but I am. So I think earth is the place that we live. There's not other planets that we can inhabit. It's not like that. It is the earth. The earth is it, guys. It is the land which the physical beings live. All right? And it has the 3 physical dimensions, and it has time, which is, the birth to death life cycle, which is also the Ouroboros, and even you see the Ouroboros in the night sky, guys. Like, time literally entraps us unless we get out of it into the highest realm of the Melchizedek. All right? Like, the Milky Way is an Ouroboros above us. And this earth realm is sadly ruled by mostly the principalities that are from the kingdom of darkness, and in the spiritual realm in general, because there are people on earth who do find Yahweh, but not many. So we are ruled by principalities from the spiritual realm, but mostly it is the kingdom of darkness, unless you find the kingdom of righteousness. So that's, if you want to know how our world works, here it is, in the best way that I could show it, and pray about it, and I hope that helps you. Alright, so let's keep moving. Alright, why do the nations conspire and the people plot in vain? the kings of the earth rise up and the rulers band together against Yahweh and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their chains and throw off their shackles. The one enthroned in heaven laughs. Yahweh scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, I have installed my king in Zion, my holy mountain. I will proclaim Yahweh's decree, he said to me. You are my son. Today I have become your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. Therefore, you, kings, be wise, be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve Yahweh with fear and celebrate his rule with trembling. Kiss his son, or he will be angry, and your way will lead to your destruction, for his wrath can flare up in a moment. Blessed are all those who take refuge in him. So Psalm 2 is kind of like a recap of what I just showed you all. Like, Yahweh ultimately rules, and yet the nations rage, like the ones below him. For some weird reason, they want to rage against him, but he gets the final laugh. Because this is a battle over who ultimately gets to have the earth, which is another huge topic that we need to all focus on. Like, Yahweh's going to create a new earth, and it's all about who gets to remain here as his people. So that's so important to know, because we're not taught that in church. We're not taught that as we're growing up. We're taught that the earth gets destroyed and we just get beamed up, which it's kind of like that. There are parts that are true about that, but it really is about who gets to inherit the earth. We want to inherit the new heaven and the new earth. So you want to be the people who get chosen to stay to inherit and get your new body in glory. All right, so with that said, the nations of the earth are ruled by the dark powers of this world, and they by default go against Yahweh and his Messiah, who are of a higher order. Those who find the narrow path through Messiah and keep in covenant are part of that higher order of Melchizedek and are saved from the bondage of this world, death, and its associated nations. Now let's track on to learn about the very beginning of all of this. Alright, so now here is our start in the supernatural journey through creation, out of the garden and into eternity, with day 1 in Genesis. Alright, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the Eretz, or the earth. And the Eretz was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Ruach of Elohim was hovering over the face of the Mayim, or the waters. And Elohim said, Let there be light. And there was light. And Elohim saw that the light was Tov, or good. And Elohim separated the light from the darkness. Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. Alright, so in Bereshit, or Genesis 1:1, which is part of what we just read, the very first verse of Genesis initiates that the heavens and the earth have a designer and creator. This verse in Hebrew is Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim vayet haaretz, which reads out in English as, In beginning created Elohim the heavens and the earth. The sentence has 7 Hebrew words, and the 4th word, et, serving the grammatical purpose of pointing towards a direct object, and the higher purpose of expressing an understanding rather than being a translatable word. This et is an Aleph and a Tav, which are the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet, or Aleph Bet, if you will. because it's an Aleph-Bet that started. The understanding is that the Aleph and Tav, being the first and last letters, represent the beginning and the end of all things. So, from the Hebraic perspective, Genesis 1:1 can be read as, "In the beginning created Elohim Aleph-Tav the heavens and the earth." In other words, the very first creation was the Hebrew Aleph-Bet that contains the building blocks for the rest of creation. This can be taken as far as inferring that the formation of everything after verse 1 is from the material that was already created in verse 1. Okay, so that was kind of a word sandwich. Hang on, I need a sip of water. Okay, so the very first verse of Genesis can be shown as a picture here on the menorah, because it has 7 words, and the 4th word, like I said, is an Aleph and a Tav, and it just serves a purpose. It serves a purpose of pointing towards something, and it is the Aleph-Tav, or the whole entire Hebrew alphabet. So I show a picture of all the Hebrew building blocks, and they're there, and they're in the beginning, and everything that will come afterward is from them. So, in the beginning, Elohim created Aleph-Tav, the heavens and the earth. And even so, in Revelation 22:13, Yahusha himself says, "I am Aleph and Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last." So he already tells you who he is, and he's here in verse 1 of Genesis. And he is the building blocks. The designer and instructor of all creation is revealed by the implication of the Aleph and Tav in Genesis 1 and reiterated in John chapter 1. So Yochanan, John 1 verses 1 through 5, he knew this. "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Yahweh, and the Word was Yahweh. He was in the beginning with Yahweh. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." The Hebrew Aleph-Bet from Aleph to Tav is the Word. Now John 1 through 5 can paint a more detailed picture when read with the insertion of the Aleph-Bet. Okay, ready for this? "In the beginning was the Aleph-Bet, and the Aleph-Bet was with Yahweh, and the Aleph-Bet was Yahweh. The Aleph-Bet was in the beginning with Yahweh. All things were made through the Aleph-Bet, and without the Aleph-Bet was not anything made that was made. In the Aleph-Bet was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." So, not only is it revealed that the living word or Aleph-Bet is the designer and instructor of creation, but also the living Aleph-Bet is the very fabric of the design and the instructions for creation. This becomes even more fascinating when we see that the living Aleph-Bet became flesh to dwell within his own creation in order to redeem it. Alright, so John chapter 1, 9 through 18. Ready for this? This is explaining even more what I've shown earlier. "The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of Yahweh, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of Yahweh. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glory as of the only brought forth from the Abba, full of unmerited favor and truth." Yohanan the Immerser or John the Baptist, bore witness about him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, 'He who comes after me ranks before me, because he was before me.' For from his fullness we have all received unmerited favor upon unmerited favor. For the Torah was given through Moshe, unmerited favor and truth came through Yahusha the Messiah, Mashiach. No one has ever seen the Abba, the only brought forth Son, who was in the bosom of the Abba, has declared him." So, yeah, Yahusha is the only brought forth Son. He came from the bosom of Yahweh. He is Yahweh, he is the Word. It's all there. He became flesh to save his own creation. The world itself didn't even know him, even though he created the world. It's all there. Right, so Elohim brought forth a builder with all the building blocks to build a creation and still needed the builder to fix the creation. It is the transcending question. Why does a designed world with a perfect designer need redemption? And the answer is within the question. Redeem means to compensate for the defects of something. So the designed world was defective because even though it was created from the materials of the Aleph-Tav, it was not yet given the instructions to be in the order of the Aleph-Tav. So if Yahusha is the beginning and the end, then what on this earth is happening in the middle? As this supernatural journey presses on, the need for the redeeming light of Yahusha will shine brighter while the aspects of the defect will come out of hiding. Verse 2 is a picture of Elohim bringing direction over a disorderly situation. So now we're moving on to Genesis verse 2. Excuse me, my throat keeps getting caught, so I have to keep pausing to get some water. Yeah, so now we're in verse 2. And yeah, we're looking at how Yahusha is the Aleph and Tav, the beginning and the end, but there's a whole lot happening in the middle. A whole lot. And like we said, we've established that there are orders, and Melchizedek is the highest order, and Torah is instruction. And so if the creation itself isn't in a specific order or going by a certain instruction, that is the issue. And therefore it automatically has a defect. Even though it's using the building blocks, it's not set in the proper order. It's not set with the proper instruction. And that is what the whole middle is about. So now we're going to dive into Genesis 1 verse 2 and get more into this. So verse 2 is a picture of Elohim bringing direction over a disorderly situation. The deep are the primordial waters of creation. They are boundless. Okay, we need to know about these waters. We're never taught about these waters when we're growing up. And if you haven't learned about them yet, it's time to learn about them now. Alright, these waters represent chaos, whereas Yahweh represents order. And the third element in this picture is darkness. Darkness is the place where Yahweh does not reside. Darkness exists in juxtaposition to light, but light has not come to the scene yet. Alright, so in Genesis 1-2, we still don't have light. But before light was Elohim's spirit. Alright, and the word for spirit is ruach, which means wind, breath, or spirit. So what is being shown here is Elohim as a wind sweeping across dark, directionless waters to give the waters purpose, even when darkness abounds over them. Right away in verse 2 of Genesis, we are shown how the Spirit of Yahweh operates. He enters into dark places to cease chaos with his breath. Okay, so Selah for a moment here, guys, which means take a pause and think about it. So we have these waters. the earth hasn't even been formed yet. We just have dark, directionless, boundless waters. And we have Yahweh's Spirit. And he is coming over them, over the waters, to give them order. Okay? And I've just explained earlier, we need to think about a womb. Okay? So what does this picture make you think of? Okay, wombs are dark. They're full of water once there's a child in them. And something can enter them and give them instructions. Okay? Do you see where this is going? Let's keep moving. So here it is. Here's a picture. We have like the dark waters, and they're being given a wind over them to give them direction. All right, and now we have Genesis 1, verses 3 through 5. Once the waters are given some direction, Elohim speaks light into existence in the 3rd verse of Genesis. The best way to understand the concept of Elohim speaking as a spirit or as a ruach is to think of vibrational energy. All right, so sound is made up when air molecules compress into a wave that move at a frequency. Okay, we're all taught this. So now it's time to pull out your science. Now we're allowed to. Light is made when the light particles compress into an electromagnetic wave that moves at a frequency. So the link between sound and light is vibrational energy. So if the vibrational energy of a sound wave is raised by enough octaves, it would become light. Okay, but this phenomenon takes extremely high amounts of energy to occur. But whenever the origin of the world is brought up, right? All right, now, come on, science books. Whenever the world is brought up and the origin of it, nobody has an issue with that kind of high energy phenomena happening, right? So why couldn't it be Elohim? With that being said, Elohim said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Elohim's energy as a ruach created wind, sound, and light in 2 verses, all with the purpose to contrast darkness. To contrast darkness. Elohim saw the light was Tov, and Tov can mean good, but in Hebrew it really means the fulfilling the action for which something exists, or a functioning within its intended purpose. So what is being said here is that light is functional. Okay, so when he saw that it was Tov, that means the light had function, and so he'd separate it from the dark, which did not have function. Like, darkness doesn't have any function. Like, you can't see in it. It doesn't really do a whole lot. It's just dark. But light has function. You can see. It even helps plants grow. It actually does stuff. In the light season or day, there is function, and in the dark season or night, there is not function. Okay, so here's a little bit more on how you can understand how when he spoke as a ruach, it was able to bring forth light or just bring forth anything, and it can actually be proven with what is known as cymatics. If you play a sound, and I think you can use salt or even like cornstarch things, or just different things like that, and you set it on a speaker and you play certain tones, it will like create formations and shapes. I don't know exactly what to call these shapes, but they kind of all do look like crystals, or like, I'm not sure what to call them, but it really does work. Like, sound does create forms, and so do words. So there's been experiments where, excuse me, there's been experiments where if you speak to water over a period of time, and then you freeze it, and you look at the ice crystals through a microscope, you can actually see how it looks different according to what you've been speaking over it. Okay, so like if you tell water in a glass thank you day after day, and then you freeze it, and then you look at its ice structure through a microscope, it should look beautiful. But if you tell that water every day for a while, you make me sick, you're speaking a curse over that water, and when you look at its ice crystals after freezing it, it's not going to be as beautiful and as formed, okay? Because there really does exist such a thing as disorder versus something coming together in order. And there exists chaos and just beautiful order. So it's powerful. You do need to watch what you say, and Yahweh knows this. He spoke the whole creation into being. Okay, so chaos in comparative mythology. We're coming towards the end of this first video. Okay, so this last part, I, for this series, wanted to compare other creation myths and cultural origin stories, because I want to actually show how similar they are to the Bible, but also that there is a separate principality residing over their creation stories compared to the Bible, and we'll get to there. So I'll explain. So in comparative mythology, it is the comparison of myths from different cultures to identify shared themes and characteristics. Myths are not falsehoods, but rather stories that serve to define the backdrop of the worldview within a distinct group or culture. So, mythology isn't necessarily false, okay? Things are written down, and people observe things and write things down because they have seen them, or they really do believe it to be true. Okay, like I explained, there is a kingdom of darkness in the spiritual realm, and it doesn't reside in truth, but people can see these things or have the kingdom of darkness speak to them and stuff, and to them it is true because it did happen. Okay, does that make sense? It's not in the order of Melchizedek or the highest order, but things from the kingdom of darkness speaking to people, to them that is real, and to them that really did happen. So you can't discount it. So myths are not necessarily falsehoods, but they just define what they know. Okay? And what they know isn't necessarily the ultimate truth, but it can be a fraction from it and mixed with lies. Does that make sense? So when we compare mythology, it's just important to understand this. So many ancient origin of the world myths share the theme of boundless chaos existing during or before the creation process. Some mythologists have used this finding to try and reason that the biblical creation account pulls ideas from other stories with this theme. However, what I have found is that the biblical account of the primordial chaos stands apart from the others. Okay? So in other origin myths, the boundless waters or chaos are the origin of the materials for the rest of the creation. Okay? So this is the important part to understand. In every other primordial chaos account, the primordial chaos itself is the origin of the materials for the rest of the creation. But in the revelation of the Aleph and Tav in Genesis 1:1, the Aleph-Tav or Yahusha is the origin of the materials for the rest of the creation, while the waters are the location of where he must go to provide his instructions. Okay? That is the difference. Now, the thin line between chaos containing the materials for its own instruction, okay, so imagine this chaos or the waters making their own instruction versus Yahusha containing the materials and going to chaos to provide instruction. There's a difference there. Okay, so this thin line is the line that the reality of this world walks on every day. Do we allow for the chaos around us to instruct us? So, do we allow this world and how it operates to instruct us? Or do we look to Yahweh to provide instructions for us in the midst of the disorder? Okay, so understanding the mysteries of the many instances of water mentioned in the scriptures expands more on this concept. So, water represents birth, cleansing, and renewal. It represents baptism or immersion, and is a form of birth. In Hebrew, the word water is mayim, which has the meanings of flood, loins, water, pool, and waters. Loins can be another term for a womb. So, in other words, the mayim in Genesis chapter 1 are a type of womb. When wombs receive instruction, as in sexual reproduction, they are able to create something using that instruction, but cannot create anything in and of themselves. Okay, so a womb has to have something come to it with instruction for it to create something, for it to create life. But if you have a womb that somehow creates something on its own, that is when you have that is like when you start getting into the sin line of the principality of Leviathan, or like a serpent god, okay? Kind of like, here, a great example is in the series Jurassic Park, where the female dinosaurs are able to reproduce without males. Okay? That's kind of like what this principality is. It can reproduce without Yahweh's instruction, or it just gives its own instruction to itself. Okay? In chaos and comparative mythology. So in the mythologies where the primeval chaos does create from itself, the themes of serpent gods and sun gods are prevalent. These serpent and sun gods will be further exposed as our journey goes forward. Okay, so serpent and sun gods, they have so many similarities. And it goes in the same theme of they create their own instruction from the chaos. Okay, so What to keep in mind is that in the book of Job, Leviathan is described as the dragon-like scaled creature of the deep. So it's in these waters. And it is the king of all the children of pride, okay? That's their king. Leviathan is a picture analogy for when chaos refuses to allow Yahweh's instructions to be hooked into it. Okay? It refuses Yahweh's instructions. Yahweh's instructions, reading wrong. Okay, the opposite of Leviathan is Behemoth. Okay? And Behemoth is able to stand firm in raging waters, because it has strength in its loins. So once again, it is a strong womb that is able to take in the waters. And I am among the speculators that believe Behemoth was sometime a Brontosaurus, Apatosaurus-like creature. I don't know what they're all called nowadays. The long necks, guys. That was the chief of Yahweh's creation. That creature. Alright, so chaos and comparative mythology. The four main commonalities that can be found in ancient origin myths are primordial chaos, an anthropomorphic cosmic womb or egg, winds or forces with vibrational energy, and opposing forces, okay? Those are the four different commonalities. As we have just gone over, the Genesis chapter 1 account contains all four of these elements within the first 5 verses, with the Aleph-Tav containing all the material and instruction to give them meaningful direction. His strong, meaningful instruction is called Torah, okay? That is what the definition of Torah is. It is meaningful instruction. So, the creature that is an analogy for receiving Torah is the behemoth, that has strong loins or a strong womb, while the creature that is an analogy for the rejection of Torah is Leviathan. Okay, the origin myths that do not contain the Aleph-Tav, Yahusha, who is the living Torah. Okay, so he's the living Torah. Have the ruling nature of Leviathan within them. So if it's an origin myth that does not contain the Aleph-Tav, the living Torah, then it has the ruling nature of Leviathan because it rejects him. Okay? Leviathan manifests through the veneration of sun and serpent gods, or even dual reality gods, like I explained, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the black and white duality. We will be looking at the 10 main origin myths and theories in their respective timelines alongside the biblical account to see the manifestation of Leviathan occur. After this journey, you will be equipped with the knowledge to be able to wisely choose whose crown you will wear. Okay? Will you wear that of the nature of Leviathan or that of the nature of Yahusha? So, are you going to wear a Melchizedek crown that Yahusha wants to give you? Or are you going to wear a sun god crown? Okay? Now think about the word crown and look it up in Spanish. And really think about that one. Alright, the 10 main origin mythologies and their theories. Alright, so we have Aztec mythology. It's a collection of myths of the Aztec civilization from central Mexico. We have Babylonian mythology. This isn't all of them, these are just 10 of them. So Babylonian mythology comes from Sumerian clay tablets such as the Enuma Elish and the Epic of Gilgamesh. We have the Big Bang Theory. It's the cosmological model based on the observable universe and its associated phenomena. The theory describes an extremely high density and temperature state followed by a singularity that made it expand and cool off into particles. So we have Egyptian mythology. It's the collection of myths from ancient Egypt that they used to understand the world. Far Eastern mythology is the oral and recorded literature of how their traditions came to be from the world's origin. Greco-Roman mythology is the system of myths from the ancient Greeks and Romans and their related pantheons. Hindu mythology comes from narratives found in Vedic literature as well as Indian and Southeastern epics. Islamic mythology is enclosed in the laws and orderly constructs associated with Islam and the Quran, and it's fairly new. Islam is a fairly new religion or belief system. In retrospect, I mean, the Big Bang is the newest on this list, but after that, Islam isn't that old. All right, Judeo-Christian mythology, when stripped from syncretism, so the blending of ideas from other myths such as Greco-Roman myths mixed into Christianity and Babylonian myths mixed into Judaism. So if you just purely have the Bible, it comes from the narratives, laws, and poems within the Bible and the Torah as its foundation. Okay? African mythology is a wide and diverse range of many folk tales and portrays the aspects of their world and culture. West African mythology traveled by way of the transatlantic slave trade, and it laid its roots in the Caribbean, Cuba, and Brazil. So all of these kind of spread out all across the earth, and these are the 10 main ones. Okay? All right, so here's our timeline, and I have primeval chaos of the deep. Before creation, excuse me. So in Aztec mythology, sorry, excuse me with these pronunciations. Ometeotl was the god of dual nature, so here's that dual nature again. Tree of knowledge of good and evil. That ruled over all the opposing forces in the chaotic cosmos. Ometeotl divided its own essence into a masculine and feminine half that were equal yet opposite. So here we go. Here's that equal yet opposite, tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The masculine was Ometeotl, sorry if I'm butchering these, which ruled over fire, air, and the dawn, and the feminine was Ometehuatl, which ruled over the water, earth, and moonlight. Together they created the rest of the Aztec pantheon. Okay, in the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian epic, before anything else existed, there was only swirling chaotic waters. So here's the waters. The sweet fresh water was the god Apsu, while the bitter salty water was the goddess Tiamat. They mingled their waters together to give birth to the younger gods. So here it's just the waters making their own instruction and giving birth. Okay? The Big Bang Theory explains that an infinitely dense and hot singular point began expanding from the heat and cooling down to form particles. So in the early times of this theory, the universe was hot, expanding, and did not yet have light, so we just have a vacuum. In the Book of the Dead of ancient Egypt, Noon was an infinite expanse of dark and directionless waters. Noon was represented by 4 pairs of male and female entities. Okay, and the 4 pairs that characterize Noon are hiddenness, infinite, lack of direction, and darkness. So still explains like the waters and how they're boundless and dark, but once again they brought forth things from itself, not from a creator's instruction. Okay, the Tao Te Ching, alongside other manuscripts of ancient China, allude to how the cosmic principle of Tao gives way to creation. Okay, so the cosmic principle of Tao gave way to creation. Instead of chaos or primeval waters, Taoism views that Qi, which is breath or life force from the Tao, which is the absolute source of the universe, was the initial platform of the cosmos that split its own energy into the governing equal yet opposite, so here we go again, equal yet opposite energies of yin and yang, tree of knowledge of good and evil, that established the creation process. Living in balance with Qi mitigates chaos. No, it doesn't. It creates more chaos, but that's what they believe. In Greek mythology, chaos is the primordial origin of all creation. Chaos is a mysterious dark void that sprang forth Gaia, the earth, Tartarus, Sheol, and Eros, love. Gaia and chaos procreated as feminine entities. Yeah, no. See, they procreated as their own feminine entities. That is spirit of Leviathan right there. Hindu mythology has a creation story. In the beginning, before time, nothing existed except for a vast ocean with a giant cobra named Shesha that watched over it. Vishnu, the Hindu god of preservation, peacefully slept in Shesha's coils. So right here we already have a snake. Alright, a lotus flower grew out of Vishnu's navel, and out of the lotus flower came Brahma, the god of creation. So look, they have their god coming after, not even before the creation. So, wow, yeah, that is already Leviathan. The snake came first. Vishnu commanded Brahma to create the world, and Shesha fled, and Brahma began creating. So in the Quran, accepted by Islam, in the beginning nothing existed except for Allah. Allah created water and then his throne. Okay, so Allah is a little bit different. He was there first. But once again, you have these water element. Allah then proceeded to make everything else out of water after first making the pen to write down everything that will ever happen. In the creation narrative of the Bible, in the beginning was Yahweh who created the heaven and the earth. The earth began as a formless void with darkness in the waters of the deep. Yahweh's spirit hovered over the waters of the deep, and he spoke light into existence on the first day. He didn't have to write everything down because Yahweh already was the Word. In West Africa, the Fon people believe that Nana Baluku is the female supreme that existed before she began the process of creation. Okay, so they have a female supreme, and she is the anthropomorphic figure of the cosmos that birthed from her womb creation. So she, once again, she's the womb, and she birthed from her own womb without a male giving instruction. And deities to rule over it, who together were Mawali, the deity that was with her during the creation process, who also existed before it began, was the cosmic serpent, Idu-Huedo. So she had to have a cosmic serpent to even begin her creative process from her own womb. So here we go again. Spirit of Leviathan did not have a male power to give her instruction. And that is it for this slideshow. I have many more parts for this video series coming. This was just part 1, so thank you for viewing. Choose Your Crown Part 1, a supernatural journey through creation, out of the garden, and into eternity. I hope you enjoyed that, and yes, if you want my email, please comment below. If you want to talk to me more about any of this, I have plenty more to share. So just stay tuned and ask for my email if you would like it. Thank you so much.